Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to another session of Office Hours. This time we're talking about turning your data into actionable things and making sure that it's valuable to your stakeholders aside from just being a lot of floating information that may or may not be used whenever you are going through and people asking you, are we actually improving our security? So that's the primary purpose of today. As always, I like to just make sure our technical equipment is up and running. So if you can all just put into the Q&A box where you're participating from, so I know it's working, that would be a huge help to me and my team just to make sure that part is functioning as well. Of course, throughout the session, you'll also be able to use the Q&A box to ask questions related to what I'm talking about. And at the end of the session, we'll have an open Q&A, which is for anything you might be able to think about. So I see we already have a couple of people chiming in from the US, from Canada. So the Q&A box definitely works. I'm happy to see that part. So we will be ready to go as people are still filtering in. I can see we're still having people joining as I'm speaking here. So today I'll be looking primarily at two scenarios. One is where you're in a security team that's already been running your internal scans, and you need to, as a new CISO, uh, kind of give a baseline. What's going on? What is the situation that's currently happening? And in a different scenario, we're looking at what you might be presenting to someone. For instance, if you are an MSP or you're on an ongoing basis, showing what has happened throughout the service period or in the last year or whatever. You might be in a situation where your contract is up for renewal and you need to prove that you have done work and added value to either your internal business or your customers externally. So those are the two primary things we'll be focusing on today. But of course, if you have questions or anything you want to have focus on, these sessions are always open to shift a little bit as we go through, and we'll take any questions you might have. So the first thing is this first scenario where we're setting a baseline. We don't necessarily know what the current status is, but we want to show where we're currently sitting. So this is where you set up your initial scans, you get the first set of results, and you prepare for your future to be easier for yourself when you're doing the future reporting. But right now, you just need to show where we're currently sitting. So this might be that you're taking over a scenario where scanning has been done desperately. You have a lot of different tools that has been scanning things, but you don't actually know what the situation is, either because reporting has been poor or it has been done by a third party that didn't really report themselves very well, or you're just taking over a legacy system that has never been scanned before. There's a lot of different scenarios that might be this baseline situation. So you'll go in, you'll set your scans up, and then you get that initial result. So let me share my screen here and we'll have a little look at what that might look like. So let me share this one. You should be able to see my screen now. So first off, you will try as much as possible to set up your configurations in a way that it is repeatable, because repeatability makes your scans into a baseline instead of being a one-off. So when you're doing your configurations, you'll have your scans populate into this scan section of our interface. And in here, once you've set them up correctly, you can use this as what becomes the baseline instead of just saying, I've now performed one scan and then next month or next week, whatever your cadence might be, you'll start all over again. You'll set your new configurations and then you'll run your scan. Instead, what I recommend you do is you set your initial scan. You have done it correctly. You've done all of your configurations, all of your tweaks. Now you're happy with this, aside from the fact that you found 5 critical items here. You go into this one and then you say schedule. Now you have the baseline. This will mean every subsequent scan that happens from this, when you say schedule from here, you set your start date and then you set your recurrence. This might be monthly, it might be weekly or quarterly, depending on what your contract tells you to do. But once you're using this instead of just running individual scans, you will have a comparison point because you're running the exact same settings. If something new happens, it's because something new actually happened. If something disappears, it's because you've actually fixed something. You're turning your individual data point into a timeline and avoiding the fog of like, did I do it correctly? Did I run the same scan? Did I run a new scan? What did I do differently this time? And having to compare manually item by item. So this is the single most important thing. If this is all you're listening to me, just use the scheduler to do your recurrent scanning instead of manually going in and trying to remember it based on your phone alarm or whatever alarm system you might have set up otherwise. Because this is what will make your um, scan diffs that I'll talk about a little bit later actually trigger. All right, so that was a lot of words. I'll just quickly have a drink. Just water, I promise. So this will give you your baseline. You have set all of your configurations, you run your initial scan, and then you set it up to be recurrent. Now you have your initial set of data points. That's for your taking over a legacy system or entering in as a new CISO or whatever situation you might be running into there. The other situation is what we actually just set up for, which is you have already set your baseline and now you need to know what is changing. So in our settings down here, we have the notifications. And all you need to do, I already have it in this one, but I will create a new one just for this. So scan diff is a really good name for it because that's what it does. And what you want to be looking at is if a vulnerability is different from a previous scan. It is like speaking directly at it and it will just do it for you. So if you have your integration set up, you can have notifications in all kinds of places, but by default, you can just set it up to have your email, and you will have in your email settings where it actually lands. You save that and it will run by itself. Whenever there is a diff from a scheduled scan or a rescan, it will send you a notification saying, hey, this is exactly what happened. This is exactly where things are different from last time we made a scan. And really, it is that simple. It sounds like it should be something you go in and analyze it yourself, or you have to sit down and compare two pieces of paper. But in reality, it is just letting the system do the work by itself. You'll get a notification if your reconnaissance starts finding new ports, if you find vulnerabilities that weren't there before, if we have added vulnerabilities and they happen to appear in your system, if you have performed your remediation and something does no longer exist, or if the vulnerability still exists, but some parameters of it has changed. There's a lot of different situations where you'll get this notification, but you'll only ever get it when it's relevant. So something has changed, and that's something you need to pay attention to. Of course, ideally, those changes will be because you have performed your remediation and you can now show that you have uh, added value to your customer, to your internal stakeholders, or whatever situation you might be running into. But in the unfortunate situation that you now sit with a critical CVE or something new has happened that you didn't expect, you still get that information and it's still immediately actionable. So you get to go in and say, okay, now I need to get to work. I need to start doing my remediation as soon as possible. If you have any questions to this, please feel free to type them in because otherwise I will get sore throat from this. Ah, let's see here. I'm just making sure I remember everything that we wrote down because I'm not sticking to the script at all. Let's see here. Okay. One of the important things that you need to focus on, I mentioned it very, very briefly before, is aside from just saying in here we have this really nifty little button that just says restart. You can do that. And it's very effective for you to quickly make sure that remediation stuck, or if you need to um, immediately perform a scan that isn't scheduled. But setting up your scheduled scans, it's the core concept of continuous monitoring. And by having it using our scheduler rather than setting your timer or your calendar events, you don't you cannot run into the situation that a human forgets to run a scan if you let the machine do it for you. We're trying to, as much as possible, make your job easier by taking simple steps of automation and letting you focus on things that are more challenging, more difficult, actually implementing the remediation, things like this. So you don't have to set your clock, you don't have to set your calendar reminders because as long as you keep doing those, I want to call them old bad habits because I know a lot of people are currently doing it that way. As long as you continue doing that when you do have the tools that could be doing it for you, you risk running into a situation where you forget to do it, or you're on vacation and someone else should have been doing it and they don't. And as a result, you might skip a scan. You might run into a situation where a new CV was added to our solution and we could have helped you, but you end up being exploited by someone who was faster than you. So make sure you set up your recurrent scans. It's part of the solution. You don't pay extra for it. It's completely built in and it's working the way our solution is fundamentally intended. So make sure that you go in and you set up your continuous scanning in whatever schedule fits your purpose. So as you can see in here, your options for it are very varied. You can go in, if it's super critical, you can set it as daily scans. If it's just a contract where you need to do it every quarter, you can already set it up as quarterly scans. If you're an MSP and you're juggling a lot of different customers, you can set their cadence so that you don't use the same assets all at the same time, but spread it out and have, every month actually using up a portion of your assets rather than having one huge month every quarter. I know a lot of people, unfortunately, sit in the situation where they need to be outputting all of um, uh, their proofs on a specific date, but try to distribute it wherever it makes sense. And if you're dealing with critical infrastructure, set those cadences as frequently as you can allow the infrastructure to be scanned. It just helps you stay on top of things. And because we do add new things on an almost daily basis into our database of things we can find for you. That was a tangent. And the next part here, we're looking at compliance. So when you're getting the notifications of your uh, uh, scan diffs, essentially what you're getting is a piece of evidence of compliance because the scan diffs trigger only when the settings are the same. When everything is configured the same way, that's where you're getting the scan diffs. So if a finding showed up in one scan and then the following scan, it does not show up, so you get a scan diff notification that says this finding is no longer available, you can use that as evidence for your compliance that you have performed your remediation and it worked. Uh, a lot of times you might try to do remediation and it fails or something doesn't stick the way you intended it to, and you need to redo your work. So when you're doing your rescans, you get the evidence directly into your inbox saying, hey, whatever you did made a difference, and you can use that for showing to your stakeholders, to your internal or external people who needs to rely on you as an IT specialist or a security specialist, that you've done your job. All right. So the next part we'll be looking at here is in regards to reporting. So when you are doing your scans, you have the option to report out directly from in here. And if you are using the editable pen test report, you will have a full executive summary that explains what is going on and what you're looking at compared to the scenario you're sitting in. So you'll have in your report section down here all of your different templates that might be relevant for your situation. And this might be that you create a new template that says remediation. It might be that you're using some of the templates that we're offering you by default. You have a lot of different options on how you're going about it. But regardless of whether you have our full pentest suite or our white labeling option that gives you the editable pentest report, you'll always have a short summary at the very top that just shows you how many findings exist. So even if you don't have the full templated report, you'll still always have that initial snippet. Let me show you. If I go into one of our tools here, you will always have a sample report, and this will have the little summary at the top that you can use as evidence for what is the current situation. And if you provide two different reports, you'll be able to show what is the difference between them, regardless of whether you set up your scan diff in advance or if you're just showing off what is the current situation and want to show what are we working on, what is the next steps before we go into the next agreement or before we go into the next quarter and we need to set the budget or whatever your situation might be. In regards to data retention, this might be relevant, especially if you are performing a service to external stakeholders. So if you are providing an annual scan, for instance, to your customers, it's very important to be aware that the NetSec and WebNetSec tool packages keeps the data for 1 year, and only the Pentest suite keeps the data for 2 years. So if you are planning on doing an annual scan, and that's the only point of reference you're doing, you need to have the Pentest suite, because otherwise, when you get around to the next scan, the data will be gone. So either you need to be more frequent if you have the smaller packages, or you need to make sure that you're exporting the data before you actually get to the expiration date. So be aware of that. Our different packages do have different retention times. If you're on the free package, you just have 90 days of retention. So make sure you're exporting whatever relevant data as you're generating it, because most likely by the next time you're looking into your dashboard, it won't be there anymore if you're just on the free plan. So let's see here. basically, what I hope you're getting from this is a workflow that you can stick to whenever you are setting up a new environment or if you're enhancing the environment you're already sitting in. So set your baseline, set up your diff reporting, pull out your reports as you need them, and repeat as required. It isn't more difficult than that for you to get your compliance in order, but you need to take those steps. Otherwise, it's just data points floating, and it can be really, really difficult to get that cohesive story that you need to be telling to your, especially to non-technical stakeholders who might not really understand what a CVE even is. So being able to show there was something and now there is nothing, and this is a good thing, uh, it really makes a difference in how you're able to communicate to these stakeholders who might not be able to otherwise understand what's going on. Let's see here. When we're talking about these things, we have a couple of questions that generally pop up. And of course, I'll take any questions that you'll have as well. So feel free to start typing into the Q&A section. But in the meantime, I'll take a couple of the things that our team oftentimes encounters in regard to scan diffs and setting up your scheduled items. But I look forward to hearing what you guys have encountered and where you are oftentimes running into issues, because that's really what makes a difference when we're sharing information with each other. I can sit here and talk all day about what we generally hear, but it's really nice to hear from someone who's in here and who's also participating. What are you running into? What is the situation that you had to fix? Or if you have any questions, put them in there as well. All right. So one question that we have frequently gotten asked is whether the ScanDiff reporting and this workflow I just demonstrated, if it replaces a vulnerability management process that you might already have in place. And it does not. It is something that helps support that already existing process to make sure that you are documenting everything and able to showcase it to the external and internal stakeholders in a cohesive manner. It helps you to prove that you've closed the loop, but it doesn't replace that process altogether. It lives inside of it, but it's not something that you're just saying, I do this instead of whatever process we've already created. If you haven't created one, this is a good place to start. But you might need to have additional steps as well, where you're documenting the steps you're taking throughout your remediation and things like this. But it doesn't stand alone completely replace a process. So make sure you have a workflow and follow it as closely as possible. Another question we oftentimes get asked in regards to these parts is, when do I have access to ScanDiff? And ScanDiff is available on all plans, including free. So if you're currently on a free plan, try and open up your settings, or if you're sitting in if you have your dashboard open in any case, go to settings and then to notifications. You'll have these options available to you. The only limitation in this workflow that I've shown you is if you're on a free plan, if you're setting your scheduling, you have some limitations in what options to take. So if I go back into schedule here, if you're on a free plan, you will not have access to the daily and you will not have access to the quarterly and annual schedules. You'll only have the weekly and monthly options. Let's see here. What happens if we need to change scope during the process? So this might be mid-quarter, if you need to add in assets or replace one asset with another. So if you need to add in a new asset or replace an asset, what's going to happen is you create a new baseline for that specific asset because the scan diff requires the scan to be with the same settings on the same asset, otherwise it won't trigger. So the first scan will always be the baseline, and then subsequent scans will be your scan diffs. So you only need to set up the notification once, but if you need to reconfigure your scans or you need to change scope or make any adjustments, it will create a new baseline either for your new settings or for your new assets. And then from there on, it will trigger the scan diffs. But the first time you will have to be diligent. You will have to go in and check what was the findings. I need to do a completely new baseline whenever I do either new scope changes to my settings or I work in a new workspace as well. So if you are moving between workspaces, each one will require to have its own baseline, even if it's the same assets you have in the different workspaces. Who on the team needs access to the reports and comparisons, and does everyone need a full seat? We don't have seats as such, so when you have any of our plans, you will be able to invite as many team members as you need. We don't have a limit on it. If you are a very old customer of ours, you might have had a limit in the past, but that is no longer the case. So you can invite all of your relevant stakeholders. You have role-based access control on your workspace as well, so you can determine who has access to what and how. But you can have as many people participate in the dashboard as you need. So there's no seats in that regard. And what was the other part? Who needs access? So you can, like I said, you have the option to set your different workspaces with role-based access control to your individual invited team members. All right. I'm just checking if I skipped anything here or if there's any other questions. Hmm. All right. I think I managed to touch all of the things I planned for today. Otherwise, I hope someone from my team will just yell at me really loudly soon. Uh, Otherwise, I think that's everything for today. It's been a pleasure presenting for you all. And I'll see you in 2 weeks when we will return for another office hours. I think we might be able to do a debrief from our recent DEF CON. So we had some people participating in DEF CON. I don't know if it's going to be next office hours or the following one, but definitely one of the upcoming ones. And I'm sure you will want to participate in that because we will have a lot of learnings and a lot of things we took from there that we will be either implementing in the future, the feedback we got from our existing customers, all of these things. I hope I'll be able to capture one of the people who participated there and have them be part of an office hour in the future. But I don't know if it's going to be in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, but hopefully it will be soon. I'm sure we'll also have an office hour session on the announcement we made last in the at DEF CON about our new AI bot that is able to do fully autonomous pen testing, which currently is launched in a closed beta. So if you hadn't already seen that from the from DEF CON, that's the thing I was gagged on last time. I wasn't able to talk about it this time. Finally, it has been announced, so I'm able to reveal a little bit. And as we get data from our closed beta, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about in that regard soon as well. Thank you all very much for participating, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye.